Hello, my name is Mark O'Keefe. I'm Executive Editor for Herald-Standard.com, and welcome to this Herald-Standard.com editorial board debate with two Republican candidates, Mark Fischer and George Toothman, for the 50th Legislative District, which includes all of Greene County and parts of Fayette and Washington counties. With us today are editorial board members Terry Sneed, who's managing editor for content for Herald-Standard.com, and we also have Bill Long, who's a community representative on our editorial board. So each of the candidates will get 2 minutes for the opening and then 2 minutes for the closing, and also to answer 2 minutes to answer each question, which will be coming up as we will ask them in between their opening and closing. So we're going to start with the opening. We'll start with Mr. Fischer.
I'm very happy to be here. Politically, I started life as a Democrat, became a Republican. For a while I was a Libertarian, and came back to the Republican Party in the interest of trying to make a difference. The decision to run for this seat came about last year. There are a lot of issues facing the 50th District. I'd like to have a chance to work on them. I've spent a lot of time working in government, local, state, and consulting at the federal level. I think I can make a difference, and that's what I would like to do. The primary overarching interest that I have is reducing the size and scope of government and the intrusion into your life. I think that's an achievable goal. We've gone too far in depending on government to solve all of our problems, and I think that has to change. And that would be a overarching cornerstone, if you will, whatever you want to call it, a focus of my representation. And that doesn't mean that we cannot achieve other results as well. That's certainly possible. There are things that we can do by making government work the way that it should, but we have to do it in a constrained fashion. And that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Toothman.
My name's George Toothman. I'm a 24-year-old college graduate seeking nomination for the Republican Party in the primary election for state representative in the 50th District of Pennsylvania. Over the last 10 weeks, I've familiarized myself with the community, although my family's been involved with its issues and the people for many, many generations. In a primarily door-to-door campaign, I've introduced myself to hundreds of Republican voters. I've learned a lot about the issues that face our district, and am concerned about community health, education, and the future of the energy and natural resources industry. I look forward to the opportunity to meet others in the 50th District, and hope that I will receive support on April 24th. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take the first question. What are your thoughts about longtime incumbent Bill DeWeese, who is unchallenged in the upcoming Democratic Party primary, but who also waits sentencing on election fraud charges on election day? What do you think will be his legacy, and what would you do different or the same if elected? We'll start with Mr. Toothman.
Over a many decades-long service to the state legislature, Bill DeWeese was able to represent the people of our district and to put forth a number of pieces of legislation that helped our communities, our fire departments, and hospitals. His relationship with the people of the district is very strong, and he's garnered a lot of support in the Democrat Party. His efforts should be respected, and his his service admired.
Is that it? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Fisher.
Sure. Bill was an extremely popular representative in the community for a number of years. I think he was in almost 30 years. I'm not sure exactly how long he was there. It was quite a while. And I look at the situation today that he's in, and I can't help but notice there were so many others that faced charges for similar activities, and these were all long-term legislators. People have been in there a long time. And I think maybe I try to look at it and say what happened here, what occurred. And I can't help but think that business was different when he reached office, and things changed over the years, and I don't believe he did. And I think that ultimately led to some of these problems. Now that said, you have to say anyone who could stay in office that long, they had the population behind them. But it's time to move on. This situation we're in right now with him maintaining himself on the ballot, the lack of a challenger from the Democrat Party, which is amazing to me that nobody would step up, nobody would have the guts to step up and say enough of this, is truly shocking. The fact that we're going to be without representation for so long because of this rests with Bill. That was his choice, his personal decision, and we're going to be without representation at least through the rest of the year, and potentially if he wins in the fall, if he stays in and wins, clear into May of 2013. And I talked to a lot of voters, Republican and Democrat. A lot of households are mixed in the areas of District 50 that I've covered. And the folks indicate to me they want to change. They're tired of this, and the things that have occurred most recent. I mean, I don't get into the criminal issue. That's not my job. That's between him and a jury. But the folks are absolutely upset over the way this has gone since then, and the refusal to bow out, and the lack of a resignation. It's not good, and I think that's going to be, unfortunately, Bill's legacy. I think that'll be what the issue he's remembered for, and that's a shame, because I think, as my opponent mentioned, he's done things that people liked and they supported. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Terry, you want to take second question?
Sure. What do you think of term limits? Should there be any limits placed on how long someone can serve in public office?
Is that for me?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I have mixed feelings on term limits, and I'll tell you why. The best term limit is the voter. Normally, you want to trust the voters to do the right thing, and you'd hope that their decision would be enough to limit when necessary. On the other hand, when representation stays in office too long, you get into a pattern, of growing power, of reaching. I see that happen a lot. And I like the idea of my representative being powerful, but on the same term, when the power is with somebody else, then where does that leave us? So it's kind of tough. Personally, I do support term limits. I would vote to support term limits. I don't think that's a bad idea. I have no intention of being a career politician myself. I want to try to make a difference, make changes, and that's good enough. I'm not looking to be there forever.
When you say supporting term limits, do you have anything in specific in mind, and how long would you be willing to say, how long, if elected, how long would you be willing to serve?
Well, I think it would be a little premature to quantify that, because I'm still kind of wrestling with that issue. I think 8 years, as we do in many of our offices where we limit governors, presidents, I think that's a good number. At this point, I would lean towards that.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Toothman?
I believe it's important for a representative to the State House to maintain balance with his time in Harrisburg and in his district. If ever his obligations to his district or to the legislature fall out of balance. I believe it lies in the hands of the people to decide whether or not he's qualified to seek another term.
Is that it then? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Bill, you want to take third question?
Certainly. That would be to Mr. Toothman.
Mm-hmm.
The State House representatives voted recently 140 to 49 to reduce the size of the House of Representatives from 203 to 153 members, and the Senate from 50 members to 38 members. Do you support this legislation?
The legislation put forth in reduction of the size and scope of the state government was considered by many figures and represents the product of a lot of time and thought. I believe when decisions are made on the size and scope of the government, many views should be taken into perspective and appropriate measures taken in its vote.
So is it something you support or you don't support? Or are you just not sure?
I need it.
Pardon? Or if you don't want to answer the question, you don't have to.
I'd like to hear.
Pardon?
That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Fisher?
I absolutely support the move to reduce the size of the legislature. I think that the time frame to accomplish it in is lengthy. It gives adequate time to ensure that the voters' interests are accounted for in this process. Now, let me be specific about what can happen here. This can be a dramatic shift back. Now, this number, I believe, was the same number as in effect before many years ago, and I don't think there's a magic number. I don't think that growing it is a good idea. What you get into then, you get a lot of additional cost to the government from the standpoint of having all those representatives in place, the staff to support them. And I think it also makes the legislative process more difficult when you have that many more interests involved. The numbers of residents that will affect in a district, I believe the estimate was to go from 60 to about 80,000 per representative. I don't really see that as a problem in my mind. You would be able to accomplish that, I think, effectively. And again, there's not a right or wrong answer. I like the idea of part-time legislators. I've always supported that as well, because that takes the professional politician, the lifelong politician, out of the picture. They're not as interested or as likely if there's not a full-time job and a huge pension in it. And that's the kind of person I am. So I very much support it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, next question. What are your thoughts about the recent impact tax passed on the Marcellus Shale? And do you have any concerns about how the Marcellus Shale is being developed in the area? And are you satisfied that local residents are getting their fair share of jobs in the industry? Start with Mr. Fisher.
Okay. I do support the legislation recently passed. I think it does several things. When you look at the entire act, it was also about standardization of requirements on the drilling industry. I like the idea of it being standardized jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I think potentially there's a little less local involvement maybe than what should be. Okay. That said, we need to make sure that the industries that extract resources of all types, that damage our infrastructure or put a burden on it, deal with it. They need to provide a revenue stream to fix the bridges, fix the roads that they damage. I had an interesting discussion with a county commissioner in Greene County about this, and I raised the issue that perhaps DOT standards on some of these roads are not adequate because of the type of use we put them through. You know, DOT standards are designed for normal use, and we've got some exceptional demands being put on the infrastructure. So that may be an avenue to consider going down the road. I did not favor a straight tax or an extraction tax per se that could go in to fund other programs. I don't support that, but they need to pay for the cost they incur. One other aspect that about the impact, you know, I think I'm for anything that puts income and wealth into Pennsylvanians' pockets, and I think we can do it in a way that balances the environment, balances their interests in our infrastructure, with the ability for them,
30 seconds.
Thank you, for them to make money off of this. I think it's a good thing. I want our residents to be the most prosperous possible, and this is a good way. We've got a lot of farmers, a lot of resource owners that have made a lot of money and will for the foreseeable future. I'm for it. Thank you.
What do you think in terms of the jobs? Do you think that local residents are getting their fair share of the
Interesting.
jobs?
Interesting. I talked with a gentleman from one of the energy companies. He indicated to me they had a hiring effort and received 500 applicants. Once they were told about the demands of the job and the hours, most of them were local, 250 showed back up for the drug test. After the drug testing was done, 3 were hired. Now, that's concerning to me on a lot of levels. There are jobs available. These companies want people to work for them. But the folks that are being, considered need to step up. And that's an individual decision. That's not a government. We can't make people be motivated. But I will say, I talked to another gentleman who complained to me because he didn't have a job. He had a master's degree, a small baby, a wife with a PhD, and he was upset because he couldn't get a job. I suggested the energy industry. He said, well, yeah, maybe. And I said, all you got to do is pass a drug test, be in decent shape. He said, well, I like to smoke a joint now and then. I put my car in reverse, said, see you later. As far as I'm concerned, we're not, there's nothing anybody's going to do to change that kind of an attitude. If you don't want it bad enough to work for it, you're not going to get it.
So who was it who said this about the drug test where only 3 people passed?
It was a gentleman that works for the energy company. I don't have his name. I spoke to him on the road about it. And it was certainly concerning to me, and something we need to look into.
Was it somebody in an official capacity, or just somebody you just were...
Just a gentleman that worked for the energy company that I encountered. But I didn't have trouble really believing his numbers. I think there's a pretty serious problem with that right now.
That pretty much, it's just kind of more or less a casual conversation.
Yes, exactly, yeah. But it's something that I'd like to look into deeper to find out what the facts are with the energy company hiring.
Okay, Mr. Toothman.
Municipalities and townships can work together with private industry to promote economic growth and jobs in the local economy. In partnership, they can establish and learn about methods to promote health in the communities and to establish effective tax structures which serve those communities. Permitting costs are another way that energy companies can work with local municipalities for energy sustainability.
And what do you think in terms of the jobs? Do you think local residents are getting their fair share of jobs in the Marcellus Shale industry?
I believe there are a lot of opportunities for individuals seeking employment in the natural industries, both locally and in other areas in the country.
Mark, could I have a little follow-up?
Sure.
The Greene County Commissioners have brought up that because of the influx of people in the gas industry, that there could be a shortage of acceptable housing in Greene County. Do you have any views on that topic?
I do. There absolutely is a shortage of housing. We've got a lot of workers coming in to support the industry. Now, it does cycle. It's not necessarily a multi-year. It depends on what project they're doing. We've got some pipeliners, 5-month project, what have you. I own a building with apartments for rent, so I've dealt with some of the inquiries, and I understand a little bit about what they're looking for. They've had them in RVs where they could. There just wasn't enough, and it's about getting the person close enough, to not have a long commute and waste a lot of time. So it's absolutely real. It's disappointing to me that we can't get more people locally involved in this. But a lot of our residents in the district, are engaged in other work activities. So you just don't have enough when you've got a quick project of 5 months. Now, who wants to give up their regular job, for a short term? So it's a tough situation. They can't all be a long-term employment situation, but housing's a problem, absolutely, and we're doing what we can, for sure.
Mr. Toothman?
Improvements can and should be made in part-time residential options for seasonal workers in the energy industry. These opportunities can be created through work with county commissioners and in tandem with representatives
Okay. Okay, Terry, you want to ask the next question?
Another energy question. What are your thoughts about the coal industry in our area? Can anything be done and try to help the coal industry?
Mr. Toothman?
The 50th District has had a long legacy of service in the coal industry. Access to natural resources has changed, and the methods in which this natural resource is extracted have changed.
Is there anything that can be done to help give the coal industry a boost? Maybe some environmental regulations or anything like that?
Efforts can be made to use products and resources gathered in the United States, and relationships with businesses and industries can be fostered to that end.
I personally believe the most important thing we can do for the coal industry is to get a president in office that doesn't swear like ours did to cause energy prices related to coal to skyrocket. I think the term was necessarily skyrocket under his plan. I was shocked and amazed that the coal unions, the UMW, supported President Obama after he made a statement like that. I think that, anyway, that it was just unbelievable to me. Now, what can we do about it? First off, coal energy has cleaned up its act immensely from the old days. I remember going to Pittsburgh as a child, and the smokestacks all up and down the river, and we parked to visit relatives. My dad would use a brush to brush the car off when we came out from all the soot and the residue, and the steel mills, specifically. But we've cleaned up a lot of that. We've made a lot of strides in the area of cleaning up energy for our use. Our domestic energy policy is insane, in my opinion. We need to produce all of our resources. Now, we're sitting, and we have forever sat on huge coal opportunities. We need to seize the day. Your representation in Harrisburg and in Washington need to make that a major focus of what they do. We do that by lobbying other legislators, by trying to tear down the myths that are perpetrated for political reasons about coal energy. I'm a huge supporter of the coal energy. I'm a huge supporter of the United Mine Workers. I think my father is a retired mine worker. My whole family before me were mine workers. That organization has to get its act together on this issue and stand for their membership. And I think that the legislators need to do the same. That's another way to produce wealth for an area that really needs it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, you want to take question number 6 there, Bill?
Yes, thank you. It's a threefold question, and I can repeat parts if needed, dealing with education. What do you think about the education cuts being proposed by Governor Corbett? Do you have any thoughts about State Representative Tim Mahoney's plan to consolidate high school administrations in Fayette County as a way to cut costs? And lastly, what about a similar idea, consolidating school districts in Greene County as a way to cut costs?
Let's take them one at a time here on the answer with Governor Corbett's current educational cuts. Did a little research over the course of this campaign, and I've looked at education spending. And I'll tell you what, I used, this is from the Commonwealth Foundation, if anybody wants to look it up, but I looked at the cost. In Pennsylvania we're running about $14,000 per student on average. In some of the districts it's quoted as high as $25,000. There's no correlation between the spending and the results. Now that doesn't mean we cut out education, and that's not where I'm coming from. But we have to get sensible about this. We don't have the money. This is the bottom line. I do not support going into huge amounts of government debt to fund programs that we just cannot afford. Certainly we need to provide education, but we have to do it in a smarter way. I believe that Governor Corbett's situation, I don't want to speak for him, but I think he's reached a point where we have to make cuts. It's in higher education as well. You just can't continue to write blank checks and say keep going the way you're going. You've got to stop. I mean, that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I'm supportive of the initiatives that were taken to this point. I think we have to go further, though. We've got to look at education on a larger scale in Pennsylvania, the per student costs, options that we may have with technology, things that we can do differently to educate the children here. And certainly along with that, the option for more private education for people that want to have their children educated privately. And I know from the residents that I have talked to in the district, almost to a person, they're absolutely fed up with the skyrocketing costs on their property related to school taxes. It's something that they're just fed up with. We've got to fix it. It's got to be dealt with. I think the governor's steps initially were a movement towards that. The second issue with Representative Mahoney and the administration consolidations, not fully versed on what he wanted to do. I'm assuming that's a form of functional consolidation at the administrative level of the different schools. I can see where I'm a believer in consolidations where they make sense. I've worked in public safety. We consolidate all the time. Over the years, and some places I've worked, there have been movements towards that functional consolidation, like providing EMS with fire services, things like that. There can be cost savings, which you've got to watch for in any of these. And the same thing with consolidating the school districts in Greene County, is that you don't create a bigger problem when you roll them into one, and in a place I lived in another state, they built a Taj Mahal school administrative building because now they needed one. You know, ridiculous kind of approach. You know, you've got to keep it real when you do this. If you can functionally consolidate this and bring economies of scale to bear, things like the transportation system within the schools, things like the administration system, I'm very supportive of it. You need to be carefully thought out. And it's not something necessarily that you ram down somebody's throat legislatively, but you've got to let the local people that are affected work through the process to come up with the best system that works for them. Maybe it's consolidation, you know, across the districts like the Greene County discussion. Maybe it's more functional at an administrative level like what Representative Mahoney's talking about. So again, it's about the process and how you get there. But what you need are legislators that are willing to work to get the framework in place to make these things happen, to force the issue into the forefront and then get results. And I think we can do that. I think if enough people that think like I do get in there, we're gonna have an effect. And I think that's what's important.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Toothman?
The efficiency and quality of educational opportunities in our area can be improved in consultation with school boards and school administration. And encouragement can be made to seek and provide opportunities in education privately and publicly.
Okay. Okay, I'll take the next question. One of the problems facing school districts is exploding pension costs. What do you think the state legislature can do to try and rein in these budget busting costs? Start with Mr. Toothman.
The pension cuts will affect the retiring generation of educators in our area. We should be concerned for these teachers who have served and educated many generations of youth, and we should work to support them in their retirement.
Okay. Mr. Fischer?
Absolutely. Again, from the Commonwealth Foundation, the research I did concerning the two primary pension systems, SERS and PSERS. Now, the PSERS is a public school employees retirement system. I looked at the numbers here, and if both of those plans are listed at $1.7 billion, 2011 and 2012. That's taxpayer contributions, and they're projected to go to $6.1 billion in 2016 to 2017. That is not sustainable. We do not have the money for that kind of an increase. That's 257% based on these numbers, and I think we have to look at the options for these systems. Number one, they have to be funded appropriately if they're in place. You cannot continue to kick the can down the road and say we're going to fund it later. That's a must. But I think we need to look at other options to match more what the private sector does. There are a lot of options that could be put into play here. I think we need to analyze the cost and the impact on this. The goal should not be to say, school teachers, we're going to throw you under the bus, so to speak. I think we need to be focused on a plan that makes sense and is affordable. And when you listen to that kind of a number, I mean, it's clear to me that's not sustainable. I think anybody with common sense can realize that. It's not a game, it's not a political ploy. That's a huge amount. And where's it going to come from? So we've got to look at it. And it's not just school teachers. Other state pensions, government pensions in general need to be looked at. They need to be kept realistic. Before, when I started working in local government under a state pension system, the deal was we were paid very little. And the trade-off was you had a good pension and good benefits. And it shifted along the way. The funding for the jobs, when you look at the costs My impression is that the folks are paid a lot better now than what they were, but still reap the huge benefit difference. And I think we've got to be realistic. It's not trying to punish anybody, it's just what it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, this will be the 8th question. This will be the last one. Terry, you want to take it?
Greene County's unemployment rate was recently listed at 5.9%, the 5th lowest in the state, while Washington County's rate was 6.7%, the 19th lowest in the state. Meanwhile, Fayette County ranked 59th with an unemployment rate of 8.8%. Why do you think Fayette County's unemployment rate is much higher than the rates of Greene County and Washington County, and what could be done to try to reverse that?
Mr. Fisher.
Sure. I'd be interested to know what the impact is from the energy, the short-term energy opportunities that exist at this point, and I don't know that in comparison to those numbers. That's a pretty big difference for neighboring counties. I mean, clearly there's an issue here. Now, maybe it's as simple as uniting the energy needs with the folks over here and have them drive. That may drop a little of this, but you have to be realistic. Fayette County's a lot heavier populated. I think took a lot of hit with the downturn in industry over the years, whereas Greene County's population is less. We've got a base there, if you will, of opportunity in some of the energy industries and other things that have come up along there with the interstate growth, what have you. So it's easier when you're dealing with a smaller number. I think Fayette County's, with that larger number, is going to be a lot more difficult. What saddens me are the number of folks that have to do what I did, leave the area to have a career. And that is sad. I didn't want to go. I didn't have a choice. You know, if I wanted to provide for my family, that was what we had to do. I think we need to look at some of the other opportunities with smart industries and when I say smart industries from our standpoint that can use the labor force here and have an impact in another area. We've got a lot of technology now makes that possible. Technology corridors, something they use in some areas to do that, where you've got the infrastructure to support them. But you know, it's not there's no short-term fix. This is going to take a long time. One thing we can do is look at the rates that businesses are taxed in Pennsylvania, and some of the highest. I've got the numbers, not going to dig them out and bore you with more numbers, but it's pretty high. And those are things we can look at as a way to stimulate it and then direct it where it's needed most. You know, when you've got numbers that far out, I think we should try to do something. On a national level, it may not be so bad when you compare it to some areas, but my focus in the 50th district is about the areas I represent, and that's what I'm worried about. And I think we can move this along again with making the right decisions, lowering the cost of government, and making it attractive. Now, I don't mean giving away
You have
things.
30 seconds.
Sure. I don't mean giving away things. I've seen some things in the past that really annoy me. Folks that want to bring in a big box store and they slash taxes, try to put plans together to do extraordinary things to get them there. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is providing the climate and the opportunities for these businesses that really do produce good employment numbers and get people to work. Infrastructure too plays into that. You know, the ability for people to remotely work. That's a big issue because, you know, I know I'm one that I like living here, and I think there's a lot of people that do that wouldn't mind living here to telecommute, you know, to some other location. You know, you got to make sure the infrastructure's there to handle it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toothman.
Where there's a lack of employment opportunities is a chance for partnership with private industry, and efforts can be made to create partnerships with industries to draw new businesses to the area. Small business loans could also play a factor in the promotion of job opportunities, and I agree with Mr. Fisher in that infrastructure and remote working is an important component.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to give each of the candidates now 2 minutes for a closing statement. If you want to address anything that any issues that we didn't ask you about, or if you want to say something further, maybe explain something, the floor is yours. We'll start with Mr. Toothman.
Thank you for the opportunity to be considered as a candidate in the primary election for state representative. The last 10 weeks have been profoundly educational for me and on the issues that face our district. I look forward to working on them and improving our opportunities locally and on the state level.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Fischer?
Absolutely. I face a difficult process in getting elected. I'm a conservative, small government Republican in a very Democrat district. I have to get my message out, and I think what transcends everything is the conservative part of that. My dad's a lifelong Democrat. He's a very conservative Democrat. And the people I talk to out there that are Democrats also seem to share a level of conservatism that may not be there at a national level in the party anymore. I have to win those votes over. I'm realistic about that. What I hope that people viewing this and reading about the comments will take from this is it's less about party and a whole lot more about your belief system, your concern, and your willingness to do the right thing. I don't want this job so I can campaign for the next election and pursue a career in politics. I want this job to make a difference. And I want to do the right thing by as many people as possible in the right way, in a smart way. A smart way that brings long-term change, meaningful change. I've often heard about my potential fall opponent, Bill DeWeese. Well, Bill got us this, Bill got us a ball field, Bill got us a bridge, Bill got us whatever. What I would hope people would say about me is Mark got us results. He changed things. He changed things for the better. I'm not interested in the single projects as a legacy. I want to make a difference to the folks here that would be kind enough to put me in office. Like I say, I've got a tough job ahead of me to try to get elected. I've put as much information out there as I can, but the one thing...
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. The one thing about it that really made an impact on me was the opportunity to meet so many people that a lot of them I haven't seen in a long time and talk to them and really understand where they're coming from. And after doing that for as many weeks now as I have, I'm more positive than ever that it is possible for a Republican candidate to take this seat if they have the right message. And it was great to talk to everyone I've talked to. I'll see more, but it kind of gives me a little sense of energy about what's possible. Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank both candidates, Mr. Toothman and Mr. Fischer, for coming in today and agreeing to meet with the Herald-Standard editorial board. My name is Mark O'Keefe. I'm executive editor for Herald-Standard.com, and I want to thank you for watching out there. We'll see you later.